What do you say to attorneys out there that are not using social media?
I think you're missing out on a really large portion of the population. And, I get a lot of clients that are like, I only saw, this lawyer on a billboard, or I only, heard of them because of a friend or whoever. And if you're not really putting your name out there, especially on platforms that are new to younger generations, like you're really missing out on half the population.
Hey, I'm Armando Leduc, producer, film actor, and owner of Leduc Entertainment. I have chosen a life off the beaten path and wanted to find others that are doing the same. Spaghetti on the Wall is a show based on all of the years that I've thrown spaghetti on the wall and nurtured what stuck. We will share fun stories, ideas, tips, tricks, and more. Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you are consuming this podcast, Spaghetti on the Wall. Ladies and gentlemen, back with another one. Taylor, the attorney, what is up?
Hi, how are you? Happy to be here.
Thanks for being on the show. Yeah. Love having attorneys. I love being in the space. I got into the legal space about 3 years ago, and I found that a lot of attorneys think like I do.
Oh, nice.
I feel like I should have been an attorney, but I feel like there's a similarity, and I think it'll be a good segue into introducing you. I think there's a similarity between a lot of attorneys and like actors or like performers, that sort of brain, right?
Yes.
And so you help.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head, especially if you are like a trial attorney. That is your game, man. And I actually went to law school with several professionally trained theater actors who did very well for themselves in their career because of that. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you help everybody, but specifically female entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually only help women. I've completely narrowed it down to female entrepreneurs. And then specifically, I do focus on content creators, freelancers, and creative-based businesses. So, yeah.
Talk to me about how good it is. You know, you always hear the what is the phrase? The something in the niches, the money's in the niches, but it's something, it fits. But they say that you should niche down if you really want to be successful, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I still have people come to me from all walks of life, but yeah, it's been really nice to kind of narrow down and focus on one thing, because creatives, which is, freelancers are creatives and content creators are everyone is creatives. It's really important to focus on your intellectual property in those fields particularly. So it's been really great to kind of narrow that down to one area, I guess.
Okay. And so when did you niche down, by the way?
Oh gosh. Well, so technically I am a recovering divorce attorney. And I am switching over to business law because honestly, I just cannot handle seeing people that the law system is not set up to help, particularly women. Can't watch them be beaten down any longer. So I've been an attorney for 8 years, but I switched to this about 2 or 3 yeyears ago. And that's pretty much because of, getting burnt out. But also I started a style blog during the pandemic because, I'm trapped in my apartment. I have these clients with, serious domestic violence issues, and they're trapped with their people. And I needed something that was just a creative outlet to like let out energy and vent in a way that was positive. So that's kind of how I got into this whole creative realm.
It's interesting that you say that the court system is designed against the woman, but I feel like most people's, I guess, thought is that it would be, especially, in regard to like divorce in particular, that it favors the woman more than the man. But you're not saying
no,
that.
Not in any way. That's not true in any way.
Really?
I guess it's your perspective. If you are and every couple is different, right? Like sometimes there are truly crazy, women. That is absolutely a true thing. But for the most part, no, that's just not what I've seen in my 8 years being a family law attorney. And that's because the law does not favor people that don't have money. And a lot of the women that I serve, stayed at home with their children. And because of that, they left the workforce very early, and it's very hard to get a job. It's very hard to support yourself and your children, especially when your husband is not paying child support. Most people don't realize this, but a lot of people don't pay their child support. A lot of women don't receive child support. And in order to get that child support, you have to hire an attorney to go back to court. And not only do you have to go back to court once, you have to go twice because you have to confirm it, and then you can go back to enforce it. It's very difficult. So it's not always the women, and I will say in a divorce particularly, that is a very specific situation. It's not necessarily women across all areas of law.
Mm-hmm.
Across all areas of law, I would say that you are going to be disenfranchised within the legal system if you don't have money. And that it can be anyone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you have more money, you can, afford to pay for counsel. What if that is the case, that is the case, right?
And I mean, everyone has a different perspective. So I will say that is my personal one. I don't want to say that's forever.
I don't know. I've only been in the legal space for 3 years, and I've worked with attorneys from across the country. So I think you are correct in that, that's, the more money you have, obviously the more sway, and obviously the more staying power, right? Because like if you have more money, the other person's just going to get fatigued or run out of money to fight.
Exactly.
Right. So, so how do you balance the, income with helping people that are sort of low income?
Great question. So that was something I really took into consideration when switching to business law was how am I going to make this accessible to people? So all of my services are online, so it doesn't eat up quite as much of my time. And I do bill at a slightly lower rate for that reason. But I also have resources like ebooks and video tutorials and other things that are not necessarily like a direct one-on-one or done for you service with me, but they are access to legal, guidance and from an actual expert.
You ever consider doing like a nonprofit?
I've thought about that. Yeah. Cause I would like to eventually start doing, scholarships and pro bono type stuff. And that's when I need to start thinking about that. I was actually thinking about that this weekend, discussing that with my husband.
Yeah. There's I'll introduce you to, Audrey Chisholm. She's a nonprofit attorney from Orlando, who I've been working with
I would
for quite
love
a while.
that.
She's great.
That's a very specific area of law that I don't know enough about to say I know that.
Yeah. And she can help, set you up, but she can also help with like making you a successful nonprofit. So she helps, she helps nonprofits be successful too, along with creating all of the legal things that need to do to like become legal. So, that's awesome. So when you are, where are you based out of?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Okay, so you're in Austin, but you can work country nationwide or what?
Yeah, so good question again. So I am only licensed in the state of Texas. However, I do also do things like terms and conditions, privacy policy, cybersecurity type stuff, which is a lot of that is federal law. And honestly, a lot of the states are adopting the same, if pretty much the same rules as the new California Privacy Rights Act that just came out. So in that realm, all of that is kind of federal. And a lot of like trademark and copyright type stuff is also federal as well. So
talk to me about that. What's the new law that came out in California?
So yeah, California is the very first state in the entire United States to adopt a Privacy Rights Act for the state itself. So we do have, the Federal Trade Commission governing privacy rights and all of that. But really they were, or still are, only able to go after like big businesses, which is great. That is like absolutely what they're set up to do, and we need them to do that. But there are still a lot of like smaller businesses or, state actors or, what have you, that were not, that were able to kind of get by without having any privacy rights in place. And, with all of the advancements in technology and the amount of hackers that are out there these days, I mean, any business can get hacked, and all of, your client's personal information, their credit card information, their social security number, whatever information you have on file is what hackers have access to. So the government is really cracking down on that right now, and they should, because it's an issue.
Really? So that means that if the government starts to come down on the small businesses for not having, I guess you're going to need to get like, I guess, IT services as part of your business.
Well, so technically, every single business owner that owns a website, it's legally required that you have privacy policies in place. So that should already be on your website, hopefully. And then it's also legally required federally that you have procedures in place. So if you do get hacked, you are already on the hook for having a procedure in place. So you can also get in trouble if you don't have that in place, and you can get like double, triple fined. So definitely something that everyone with an online business absolutely needs to look into.
I heard that there were some attorneys out there. What is it? AMA compliant, or what is the compliance that websites have to have now for people that
with disabilities?
Yes.
Right on the tip of my tongue. That is absolutely a new. I don't know that is federally required, but that might be state by state required.
And so I know that they're like, hey, we saw that your website didn't have this. We're, if you don't pay this now, you can face up to a blah, 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 blah. I was like, damn. A couple of my friends had to go through that. I got to write that down. I got to get that done.
Yeah. Also, if you are, just because we're talking about this, another thing that is also not necessarily legally required, but is going to get you into a lot of trouble if you don't have one on your website, are terms of service. And that needs to be specific to, like, if you're selling online products, you need to have one. If you have a subscription service or online courses, you need to have one. And you also need to have one in the footer of your website as well, governing access and rights to your website.
What you don't know can hurt you.
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
Like, for sure. It's so crazy what, sometimes when you're just kind of operating in business, the things that you're not really thinking about. Because I don't think you're not necessarily always thinking about mitigating risk. You're just worried about top line revenue most of the time, and keeping yourself in business. Yeah. But part of staying in business is mitigating risk so that if something like that does happen, that you can protect yourself. I was talking to an IT company yesterday, on my podcast, and it's mind blowing.
There's a lot.
How quick it could happen, Yeah.
And to anyone, just if a hacker gets it into their mind to hack you, it's going to happen, and you could have.
And it's going to happen.
There's even a TikToker out there that he has his master's in security and like hacking essentially. And like he takes like followers that have been hacked or scammed or whatever, and then he goes and hacks those scammers and gets their IP address and all this information and turns it in to the police.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
good.
It's really cool, right?
Well, there's always people trying to be Batman, which is good.
Yeah.
Which brings me to AI. What are your thoughts on AI?
I think it's great. I think it's great as a starting point. But I don't think that we're there in terms of actually using it for, definitely not for legal. There's actually been in the state of Texas recently, there's been 2 or 3 lawyers that have gotten in trouble because they used AI to generate a brief. And the cases that they cited inside that brief were made up cases. They literally did not exist. And they not only presented this to the judge after he said these don't exist, they still argued that they did in court. And so, it's a good starting point. It can tell you very, very basic general overviews. If you're looking to mitigate risk, if you're looking to figure out what liability do I have as a company, it's great to go on there and just type that in. Say, hey, you're a research assistant for me. I am, in this business, in this industry, what are my risks? And it will tell you. But then you need to go hire a professional to actually mitigate those risks for you. Because as far as actually preventing anything, I don't know that we're there yet.
I would have never thought to go to AI to ask about what my risks are and what I'm not thinking about.
Yeah. I use it all the time.
Is it
copywriting for anything really research based? It's great.
Yeah, copywriting for sure. Have you always thought about those things? Has that always been sort of I wouldn't say driving force, but like in the forefront of your mind?
Just mitigating risks in general.
Sure.
Oh, I mean, absolutely not. I think that going to law school definitely made me a lot more aware and just practicing as an attorney. Going back to, I was been a divorce attorney for the past 8 years, and I look at divorce decrees from the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, and they're like 10, 15 pages. But the divorce decrees that I am drafting now are 30, 40, 50 pages because in the last 10, 15 years, that's how much litigation that we've done. Our society is extremely litigious,
Yeah, they
more
are.
so in the last 10, 15 years than ever before. So it's getting pretty complicated. And honestly, if you're in business long enough, you are going to have an issue, a legal issue. It's just statistically going to happen. But
Sure.
a lot of people don't think about this because who wants like the Debbie Downer, to come in and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but everything that you've built is you're gonna have to start over." So if you
Does it?
don't, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No. You sprung a conversation, but finish your thought.
Yeah.
Debbie Downer.
So yeah, I'm always the Debbie Downer in the conversations, but it's important. So if you don't trademark your name, technically you don't own it at all. So that's the number one thing people need to do that they don't understand, because if you don't have that trademarked name and someone else goes and trademarks it, then you have to start completely all over, all new branding, all new LLC. I mean, everything. So it's, yeah, it
Good
can
times.
be a hot mess if you don't think about it in the very beginning of your business.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to be petty, they could just
Yeah.
take your stuff, and
Pretty much. Yeah.
that's real petty.
Yeah.
Well, the question, where did it go?
I'm sorry. I probably just, went on.
That's all right.
Something
It's
else.
okay. So you were, oh, that's what I wanted to ask you. So when, if somebody's getting like a contract in place, right? Does it make you look like you've been in business longer and more credible the longer your contract is?
Ooh. Good question. I would say no. But if it's, half a page, it's definitely not going to be as professional looking as something longer. But
Right.
I feel like the longer it gets, if you're reaching like a 20-page agreement, that's pretty, the attorneys are getting paid very well. Like, and you were the one missing out on the pay on that. It needs to be long enough to where you are completely covered in all situations that may occur. And I know that's very vague, but it doesn't need to be extremely long. You don't need to go to Google and type in like, what are all of the boilerplate clauses I need in my contract? Like, that's not going to be helpful. And sometimes throwing in extra terms actually makes it harder to enforce and to litigate later on. Because if the court determines that your contract, maybe controverts itself and is ambiguous, then they can throw it out and just say, this is what we want you to do. So I wouldn't go for length over substance.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about getting my contract sort of revamped.
Yeah.
But the question here is, the more restrictions you have, right? Protect me.
Right.
But sort of alienates your client or potential client, because now it's all like, well, we've got to come to sort of an agreement. So is it better to have all of those things to take away during the negotiation? I mean, is that the right approach?
You can, if you know exactly what every single one of those terms mean. A lot of my clients don't necessarily understand every term in their contracts, even if they're the ones that wrote them themselves, which is fine because you were not legally trained. But yes and no, because there's absolutely a give and take. You can't sit here and say like, this is the only contract I'm ever going to do and I'm never going to amend this for you, because that's not going to work for everybody and you're going to lose clients. So I would say yes and no. Typically the things that I get pushback on are like owning the rights over something. So I think there are definitely specific terms that you can add and take away. But I mean, as far as like boilerplate terms, those are going to be pretty much the same in every contract. if that's
Yeah.
helpful at all. I'm an attorney. I can't give you a definitive answer, right?
Sure. No, I know. And plus I'm not paying you.
Right.
So, so talk to me about so I always ask attorneys like what their marketing strategies are, because I'm always curious as to how other people are doing it. So what are you doing to market?
Yeah, I am actually having my website completely redone and rebranded right now, which should be live in mid-September. But a big thing for me is honestly just social media. I am on Instagram and Pinterest and LinkedIn, and I am on there, especially and Instagram, every single day interacting with people. And that's where a lot of my clients come from. Even if they are visiting my website and purchasing something there, they tend to find me somewhere on social media.
Yeah. What do you say to attorneys out there that are not using social media?
I think you're missing out on a really large portion of the population. And I get a lot of clients that are like, I only saw, this lawyer on a billboard, or I only, heard of them because of a friend or whoever. And if you're not really putting your name out there, especially on platforms that are new to younger generations, like you're really missing out on half the population.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
I heard from a mentor once that this is what your ratio should be. 36% employees, 25% marketing, 10% operations, and the rest goes into your pocket as profit. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. I would also say that you should retain some money to build onto your business as well. I would also add like a savings in there. And honestly, I like to save a good chunk. I would save about 20%. Um, your employees, that's always going to depend on how many employees you have and like what are they doing? Are they answering the telephone, or are they like project management, really nitty gritty details? I believe everyone deserves a fair living wage. I don't know that everyone is provided that. So definitely that would be the next, or actually that should be the largest percentage your employees should be. But also I would also throw in there like 10%, maybe not 10%. I'm not really sure what that percentage should be, but also you need a CPA and you need a lawyer. If you are able to have employees, you should have a lawyer. You should have a CPA, hands down.
Why do you think businesses fail?
I think a lot of it tends to be grit and just really sticking in there. When it gets really hard and you're not making any profits, you hear about actors living in their car, for years until they get a gig. And I don't know that everyone applies like that same level of passion and commitment to their small business. Right. And that's honestly what it takes. No one ever wants to be that person doing that, but I don't think that there's any, multi-million-dollar person out there or billionaire CEO that has not had, setbacks and failures. You have to continue and you have to persevere through that.
So perseverance.
Yeah. Perseverance,
but
grit, just really committing to something and not letting go of it. It can be really hard because there's so many reasons that people can go out of business. People went out of business because of COVID, because they couldn't, make profits, or people weren't coming into their, movie theater. There can be all sorts of reasons. Right now, it's really hard to hire really good help. And it's hard doing things all on your own as a solo entrepreneur. So There's a lot of different things, but I think it really just ends up being grit. Are you committed to it? Are you going to do this no matter what? Because if you're not, then it's probably not worth it for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. What kind of content are you putting out now?
Right now, I actually have a series called Christmas in July on my Instagram. Also going to be posting some blog posts, but basically I am helping online entrepreneurs, online store owners, e-commerce businesses kind of prep for the holiday season and getting their, terms and conditions and privacy policies and marketing, making sure their marketing is legal, because there are certain words and phrases that if you use them, you have to have a legal disclaimer behind them, like money back guarantee or limited time offer. You can't just say those things without legal disclaimers, or again, you can get in trouble. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I can't say I can't say money back guarantee on my stuff.
You have to include a legal disclaimer and say specifically what that guarantee actually entails, and if there's any like fees involved, or even if you're reimbursing someone or rebating someone. Like, yes. Yeah.
Interesting. The things you don't know.
I know.
That's a sweet deal.
Yeah.
Taylor, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on all of the social media channels at Taylor the Attorney. And you can always email me at hello@taylortheattorney.com or visit my website, taylortheattorney.com.
There you go. Everybody, if you guys are specifically women-owned business and you need some help with contracts, if you need some help with, business advice, hit her up. Wealth of knowledge. I really do appreciate you being on the show. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
You got it. And that was Spaghetti on the Wall, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you by LeDuc Entertainment. For all of your social media marketing needs, digital video, podcasting, we got you. And you can watch Spaghetti on the Wall anywhere. Just Google it. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, social media. We're everywhere. And we'll see y'all next week.